Good evening, I'm Asad Ahmed. So hundreds of thousands of people had their travel plans disrupted today because of what happened at Heathrow Airport. It was because of a fire at an electrical substation, which is, about 2 miles from where I'm standing at the moment, and it supplies the whole of the airport with electricity. If we just take a look behind me, you see the main artery road which leads into Heathrow Airport. Many of you will be familiar with that. That's been completely empty today. You have, although, had the odd passenger, believe it or not, going along, pulling a suitcase, thinking they'll go there on foot into Heathrow Airport, but they've been stopped by security and turned back. Unusually, the skies above us completely quiet today, and that's unusual standing so close to the runway. We understand there may be, just maybe, a flight taking off in about 25 minutes' time. We'll have more on that a little later. But as for the area surrounding the airport, it's had an impact on homes and businesses as well. Thousands of people being affected for the same reason that the airport was affected. Well, our reporter Layla Hayes has been in the area of Hayes today to find out a bit more about that impact. Over to you, Layla.
Hi, Assad. Well, I'm here outside the hotel where many local residents were brought last night after they were evacuated from their homes. Most of them were brought here in the early hours of the morning, and some of them just had the clothes on their back. So you can imagine how much disruption there was and how difficult that was. When I spoke to them this morning, they said that they really hadn't had any sleep at all last night, and it had been a very, very stressful day. Now, thankfully, we're told that power has now returned to this area this evening, and that most of the residents are now back in their homes or are allowed to go back if they wish to. So that's the good news. But of course, there has been huge disruption here, and it's no exaggeration to say that for people in this area of West London, it has been a very difficult day.
All of a sudden, I heard a very loud bang. It was like the sky had turned from night to day for about 10 seconds, and my living room shook.
This was the view from Savita Kapoor's house last night after the electrical substation in Hayes caught fire. Around 150 people had to be evacuated from Nestles Avenue and put up in a nearby hotel.
And it was just so intense, it was just like heat. And so the police just said, oh, you go back to your house, go back into your house. So we went back, came back up into the house, and then suddenly there was a bang on the door again, about 5 minutes, and the police again saying, oh, you need to get out, grab whatever, and you need to get out.
That's what's upsetting, so rude. I just get out to it.
But many residents were frustrated by the lack of information they were given.
Honestly, I'm so upset how we were treated, really. I understand what happened, and I understand you had to get out of the house, I understood that, but no communication, none. We had to go to the police, and the police weren't saying anything. They weren't giving us any instructions, and the instructions they did give us was wrong. And then the council guy, we didn't see in here until 2:30 this morning, and it was a fiasco. Our neighbour's 92, my husband's in his 80s, I'm in my 70s, and there's people with children. There was people with babies in buggies out on the street in the middle of the night. How is that possible?
Savita says they just needed more help.
The emergency services were brilliant. They did, their focus was trying to put out that fire. I get it, but there should have been maybe somebody else just to put the residents at peace.
The council invited local residents to a nearby library to seek support.
There's still a smell of burning here, even though the fire is now under control. And due to the smoke, the London Fire Brigade are telling residents who are still in their homes to keep their windows and doors closed.
A number of schools were also closed today, including Pinkwell Primary.
Actually, the support from parents has been great because they've totally understood, and a lot of our families have been affected with having to be evacuated from their homes or actually not being able to, to make their way in because they haven't got any power.
Electricity has now been restored to the local area, but the disruption this fire has caused will continue for days to come. Layla Hayes, BBC London.
Yeah, so many people impacted in the local area because of what's happened here. But let's focus now on the airport. Our transport correspondent, Tom Edwards, you're actually one of the few people or the only person I've heard of who actually managed to get into the airport today. But there's been huge disruption.
Yeah, absolute calamity for passengers, very, very difficult. The airport hasn't shut like this for 15 years or so since we had the volcano eruption and the disruption there. If we have a look at the figures of what that means, it means that 1,330 flights were disrupted and 291,000 passengers had their flights cancelled. A lot of those were transit passengers moving through Heathrow, and this graphic here shows you the impact. It compares the airspace over London yesterday to the airspace today. So you can see the impact there. Far fewer planes over the skies of London. As you say, I went over to Heathrow a little bit earlier. This is what I found. Heathrow today was like a ghost town. A line of trolleys blocked the entrance to the terminals, with stranded travellers trying to work out what to do. It was here we met Manita, angry and fed up. She's meant to be in New York.
There was not really any live updates. I tried to get on Delta, Virgin, no one was picking up. You have the AI customer service. It was just a nightmare.
Roads were empty, escalators unmoving, shops closed. I'm not far from Terminal 3, and as you can see, it's absolutely deserted. There's just a handful of passengers here trying to find out what to do, but there are bound to be questions now around the resilience of Heathrow Airport. The Piccadilly line was also much quieter than usual. Julian from North London was one of the lucky ones, though. His flight from Johannesburg was cancelled, but he managed to get to Gatwick. He was on his way to pick up his car.
It may be odd, but these things happen. It's out of British Airways control, so I can't really blame them. And you just make the best of it. And I just feel quite fortunate that I'm getting home maybe 5 hours late, but I'm getting home, whereas other people are stranded in their destinations.
The feeder park for black cabs was also deserted.
Okay, this is the taxi feeder park at the moment. It's completely empty. No taxis in, no taxis out, no flights into Heathrow or out of Heathrow at present time.
Privately, aviation bosses are furious at the lack of contingency and resilience at Heathrow, and getting back to normal will take some time.
Resources are finite, so they're going to have to prioritise which flights they bring back most quickly, but that also depends again on operational considerations. It could be that an aircraft and a crew is ready to come back to Heathrow, but may not be permitted to leave the airport when it's diverted to because of, let's say, nighttime restrictions there.
This has been a major incident. I mean, short of anybody getting hurt, this is as big as it gets for our airport. And we are actually coming back quite fast, I would say, when you consider the amount of systems that we have to shut down, then bring back up and make sure that they're safe. It's fueling systems, it's bridges, it's escalators, elevators. All of these systems have to be brought back up, tested to make sure they're safe and put into operation.
There are now questions over how one fire could knock out one of the world's busiest airports. In the words of one business, it makes the UK look like a laughingstock.
Wow, makes the UK look like a laughingstock. Strong words there, Tom. But there have been questions raised about Heathrow's resilience.
Yeah, and Heathrow, for its part, says that its backup systems did work. It's just that there isn't enough power from them to power the whole of Heathrow, which is basically a small city. But there are now calls for an inquiry that's, serious. And this is what the Mayor of London, this is what he's had to say.
The key thing is to try and restore energy to Heathrow as soon as possible today, try and make sure the homes and businesses have power as soon as possible today, try and return the people to their homes as soon as possible today, the investigation to carry on today in relation to what caused this fire.
What it's not a good example of is London's resilience, is it? I mean, not being funny, but one power supply substation going out has taken out one of the world's busiest airports.
Well, the focus today is going to be trying to restore power to Heathrow Airport for those responsible for the investigation to carry out their investigation. But clearly, whenever there are major incidents, there are lessons to be learned. We've been in touch with the government and with National Grid and others as well, because clearly there'll be lessons that need to be learned, and I'm sure they'll be learned in due course.
What does it say about your oft-repeated slogan that London is open when people around the world will look at it and say one power substation has gone down, the whole airport's been taken out.
Well, I don't want to compare and contrast Heathrow to other airports across the globe. Other airports across the globe have been closed on many occasions over the last 15 years. The last time we were closed was because of volcano ash.
Yeah, Sir Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London there, really wants to get to the bottom of what's happened here. Tom Edwards, thanks very much for filling us in with for now. Do stay with us. I want to come back and have a chat to you a bit later on in the programme. But we've been hearing about the passengers who've had their travel plans disrupted. And we know that some people were mid-air coming into London when their planes were turned back to where they came from, back to America, back to India and other places as well. And other passengers, they were there to try and find other ways of getting from A to B, if not by plane through Heathrow Airport. Alice Bandakravi has been speaking to some travellers who've had their plans disrupted.
Heathrow is experiencing significant power outages across the area.
Bemused at Paddington Station, passengers who were hoping to get to Heathrow today, but who had to change their plans. And at Heathrow itself, there were more broadcasters on air than planes in the air. Many travellers have been diverted to other airports, including Gatwick, where they're also having to spend a lot of money on alternative arrangements.
Our flight that was meant to be scheduled at 1 is now at 5 a.m, so we're now trying to obtain a hotel, hopefully near Heathrow, so that we can try and make our connection in the morning.
I should be home today with my family, but based on the price I got for the airlines available for tomorrow, it's quite astronomical.
And spare a thought for those who were trying to come home, like Lucy Adler, whose plane had departed and then had to return to Delhi.
So it left Delhi at 5 a.m. and most people were asleep. Captain wakes everybody up, starts to explain what's going on in Heathrow. We're all expecting him to say, so we're going to go to another London airport. But what he actually says is we're going to turn around and go back to Delhi. I've been furiously searching for alternative ways to get home. So I think I've managed to get myself onto a flight to Birmingham Airport via Zurich, of all places, which leaves at 1 a.m. local time.
Matt Cook's plane bound for Heathrow from New York also had to do a U-turn.
No information yet on any possible return flights. I'm assuming we'll know more by Saturday, but we were told to collect any receipts for hotels. It's on us to pay for that, and then hopefully we'll be able to claim that back from the airline at a later date.
A handful of flights are finally leaving Heathrow tonight, but there are also tens of thousands of returning passengers still grounded all over the world. Alice Bandukrawi, BBC London.
Yeah, no one could imagine something like this happening. No one could imagine the incredible chaos it created for so many people. One of those people, travel guru, travel expert Simon Calder, who was stranded in Scotland, in Glasgow. He's on his way down to London. We can speak to him now. He's still in Glasgow. And Simon, this did catch a lot of people out.
It certainly did. About 250,000 people, by the time tomorrow's cancellations are included, will have had their travel plans torn up. Incredibly expensive for the airlines. I calculate £100 million in lost revenue alone, not to mention the, of course, costs of looking after passengers. It's been dreadful. Of course, the main cost is the emotional distress of people who are heading off for holidays of a lifetime, who were going to important family events, weddings and so on, or indeed had really important business meetings and find themselves stranded. Don't worry about me, I can find plenty of ways to travel, but for people travelling long haul, absolutely miserable. Interesting that Thomas Wolby, the chief executive of Heathrow Airport, has been saying it's a full service tomorrow. That surprised me, given the number of cancellations that I am seeing. For example, American Airlines to New York, Turkish Airlines to Istanbul, and then a pair of flights to Delhi on Air India and Air Canada, and as well as that Montego Bay, Jamaica. Unfortunately, Virgin Atlantic won't be flying there. There will also be some very long delays, 3, 4, 5 hours, and on top of that, everything is going to be incredibly busy, because I very much hope every flight out of Heathrow has every seat filled, because so many people are desperate to travel.
And Simon Calder, when it comes to the cancellations that we saw today and those many thousands of people, like you say, who've been impacted, what's the advice for them? What can they do to compensate? They won't get emotional compensation, of course, but financial compensation. How do they go about getting that?
Well, the main thing is that the airlines aren't responsible for this, so you're not going to get the normal compensation you get when the airline messes up. Hundreds of pounds. You should be recompensed, though, if you do decide to make your own way, as one or two of the people we've been hearing from have done. And that's quite straightforward. I mean, BA's attitude, and I can understand this, is basically don't call us, we'll text you when we found a solution. If in the meantime you want to make your own arrangements, I've just been speaking to a guy who's off to Frankfurt on the train, then that's entirely all right. Keep the expenses as low as you can, make sure everything is itemised, and you should be able to reclaim that, as well, of course, as hotel costs, because at times like this, the airlines just throw up their hands and say, we just can't handle this, you're on your own.
No, that's really good advice, Simon. Thank you for that. But when it comes to this power outage that we've had at Heathrow Airport, it's caught so many people by surprise. How surprised are you that something like this could even happen at one of the world's busiest airports?
Well, yes. I mean, I don't know the full details of power supply routings, but I do know that, for instance, the BBC will have multiple sources of power because it needs to stay on the air. And Heathrow, and there will, of course, be huge inquiry into this because of the huge economic and reputational hit that this has cost Heathrow and London as a whole. They will be looking at what resilience was in place. I imagine there's going to be a bit of finger pointing between the airport and the power suppliers. Of course, the airlines are just furious because they are taking the hit, and it most definitely isn't their fault.
In any way whatsoever, and you might say this is completely unrelated, would this weaken the argument for a second runway or another runway here at Heathrow Airport? Would it strengthen it, weaken it, or have no impact at all, do you think?
London is the world capital of aviation. There are more passengers by a mile flying in and out of the airport's various the capital's various airports than anywhere else in the world. But the trouble is, Heathrow, the world's busiest two-runway airport, Gatwick, the world's busiest single runway airport. There is simply no slack in the system. And that's why this morning, in a kind of normal airport, when you had a bit of runway capacity and a bit of apron capacity, you would have got more than just the handful of British Airways diversions into Gatwick. They got flights in from Cape Town, Johannesburg, Lagos and Singapore. After that, it was full. So this will increase the airport's cases for getting a bit more resilience into the system, although there will be an awful lot of people in the London area who will say there's quite enough flying already, thank you, we don't want any more, we don't need another runway.
No, you're absolutely right. Simon Calder, thank you so much for your time this evening. We hope you'll get back to London safely, soundly and quickly, but many thanks for speaking to us in Glasgow. Simon Calder there, the travel expert and guru. Always great to speak to him about what's happening in the travel industry. Let's now get a look at the rest of the day's news with Alison before you come back to me later in the programme. Alison.
Thanks, Assad. In other news now, and one of the men who murdered Stephen Lawrence has for the first time admitted he was involved in the attack. A report by the parole board says David Norris now claims he punched Stephen but didn't hold the knife used to stab him while he was jailed for life in 2012 after denying any part in the racist murder. Alex Rose reports.
Stephen Lawrence, the victim of one of the UK's most notorious murders. He was 18 years old when he was stabbed to death at this bus stop in South London in a racially motivated attack. The initial Metropolitan Police investigation was disastrous, with a public inquiry concluding the force was institutionally racist. Stephen Lawrence was attacked by a gang, but only two men have ever been brought to justice, Gary Dobson and David Norris. Both were convicted of murder in 2012, but neither have ever admitted their guilt until now. A parole board document examining whether Norris's application case should be held in public says recent reports now suggest Norris has accepted he was present at the scene and punched the victim, but claims that he did not wield the knife. He does not accept he holds racist views. Stephen's family have long campaigned for justice for their son. Speaking to the BBC in 2023 ahead of the 30th anniversary of the murder, Stephen's mother, Baroness Lawrence, said she could never forgive his killers if they wouldn't even admit their part in his death.
When somebody's done something wrong, they admit to it, they own up, and that's where the forgiveness comes into it. But they've never owned up, and in their eyes, they've done nothing wrong.
Norris became eligible for parole in December after his minimum term expired. An admission of guilt may improve his chances of being released. The parole board ruled yesterday that despite Norris's objections, his parole hearing should take place publicly. Alex Rhodes, BBC News.
Some news in brief now, and a murder investigation's been launched in Tottenham after a 27-year-old man was shot dead last night. Another man, aged 26, is in hospital after he was shot in the leg in Waverley Road. No arrests have been made. Drivers are being warned to allow extra time for journeys ahead of the final full closure of the M25 in Surrey this weekend. The motorway will be shut between junctions 10 and 11 from 9 o'clock tonight until 5:30 on Monday morning to allow national highways to demolish and remove a bridge. And the British Museum has been named the UK's most visited tourist attraction for the second year in a row. Just under 6.5 million people went there last year. On average, attractions in London saw a 3% rise in visitor numbers. We're returning now to our top story, the closure of Heathrow Airport. Let's cross to Assad with more on what's been a very unusual day there. Assad.
Yeah, really unusual day, Alison. Heathrow Airport shut down. As I say that, we're hearing kind of movement of planes behind me. We're expecting something to happen shortly this evening, but people around the areas, we've heard their lives have been disrupted. People who work at the airport, travellers, of course, they've been disrupted. Tom Edwards, this has been a difficult day. How long do you think it's going to last for before things get back to normal?
Well, I think it's waking up, isn't it, Heathrow? And we think in 8 minutes or so we're going to get 8 long-haul flights taking off. And we did have a landing a little bit earlier, only 20 minutes ago. You might be able to see some pictures of it. We think it was a repositioning of a British Airways A380 going from Gatwick to Heathrow, so it shows
that would be empty, wouldn't it?
Yeah. No passengers on it, but it shows things are happening and things are changing. There is some advice though from Heathrow. They've also just put out a statement. They say, please do not travel to the airport unless your airline has advised you to do so. We will now work with airlines on repatriating the passengers who were diverted to other airports in Europe. We hope to run a full operation tomorrow, so that's interesting, but I think you can expect disruption for the next few days because planes and the staff are all going to be in different places, but overall not a great day for the UK aviation industry, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I mean, even if planes are taking off tomorrow as normal as they hope they would, reputation-wise, that's going to be a while before that's mended, isn't it?
Very, very damaging for the UK, and I've used this phrase a lot, but as one business said to me, we're a laughing stock. This has made the UK aviation industry look like a laughing stock, so there's a lot of repairing to do of that reputation, as you say.
Yeah, and when as airlines want more runways, or so the airports want more runways, that's the last thing they want right now. Tom Edwards, yeah, exactly. Tom Edwards, thanks very much for that. Well, if you've been impacted by what's happened here today, you might have been a passenger, you might work at the airport, you might be a business around the airport or somebody living nearby. Get in touch with us. Let us know what impact it's had on you. We'd love to follow that up. You can do that by getting in touch with us on email. The email address on your screen, hello@bbc.co.uk. You'll see a QR code in the corner. If you can't bother to write it down, get your phone out, put it on camera, put it over the QR code. It'll do everything you need to do for it. Just get in touch with us. Let us know what the impact has been on you. Maybe you've got strong views about whether airports should be expanded or not now. Maybe it's changed your mind about it. Let us know. Get in touch with us. But now let's get a look at the weather forecast. It's over to you, Stav.
Thanks very much, Assad. Good evening to you. Well, we saw temperatures hit 21 Celsius across our patch for the spring equinox yesterday. That was the warmest day of the year so far in the UK. Temperatures are coming back down closer to the seasonal norm for the weekend with some rain around. And we'll see some rain spreading north across our patch through this evening. Some of it could be quite heavy, the odd shower as well following on behind. But generally, it should be drier for the end of the night with variable cloud and a mild one to come, double figures for all, even outside the M25. So it means then we start our Saturday morning off on a rather cloudy note because we've got this area of low pressure nearby. But we will have some drier weather around through the morning period with variable cloud at times, the odd shower, but mostly dry. When the sunshine comes out through the afternoon, and we think it will, that may set off some heavy, sharp showers, maybe thundery as well across northern and western areas primarily, but they could appear anywhere. Now, as we head through the course of the afternoon, temperatures will reach around 16 degrees, so it's not bad in the sunshine, but not as warm as it has been. The showers fade away through Saturday night. There may be the odd one around, but then as we head into Sunday morning, we will see a few more showers once again. So a little bit of sunshine around, variable cloud, and then those showers will tend to develop again into the afternoon as the sunshine appears, and they could be heavy and thundery pretty much anywhere, but I think a greater chance of seeing the showers on Sunday. Temperatures a few degrees lower, 14 to 15 Celsius. So that's how the weekend's looking. It's sunshine and showers basically, and not quite as warm. Into next week, a ridge of high pressure builds in, so that'll bring a lot of sunshine around with some drier weather at times. There will be a weather front pushing down later on in the week. So it's a mixture of weather, I think, for the upcoming week. A lot of dry weather around. Temperatures pretty much where we should be for the time of year. But by the end of the week, with that weather front moving in, it should start to turn wetter. That's it from me. Hand you back to Assad.
Stav, thanks very much for that. It's certainly a bit breezy and chilly where I'm standing on the outskirts of Heathrow Airport. We're expecting possibly the first plane may take off, a British Airways plane may take off in the next 2 minutes. We'll keep an eye on what happens there, but we'll be keeping an eye on everything here on our website. Just go to bbc.co.uk/London to keep across what's happening there. Obviously on radio as well. Alison Earle will be back at 10:30 with our late news. I'll be back with our weekend news as well. So you can keep across everything that's happening. It's certainly been an interesting day here. None of us expected to see anything like it. Heathrow Airport completely shut down because of a fire at an electrical substation 2 miles away. Lots of questions have been raised. The Mayor of London asking for an investigation to find out what happened and to get to the bottom of it. Do have a very good evening.